start by wishing you a happy new year, a prosperous new year, a healthy new year, a year that we see each and every one of you making progress in your choosing profession, in the course of your job of enlightening, informing, and even entertaining the Nigerian people. So on behalf of the All Progressive Congress, I want to thank you for what God used you and I and us to do for our people and for our party in 2019. It is my hope and prayers that 2020 will even be more 2020 will be a year of even greater happiness, prosperity, good health, peace in your families, and peace in our country. Respond to what we consider to be very, very reckless and potentially dangerous comments that have been attributed to the People's Democratic Party, speaking through their national chairman, my dear friend, Mr. Secondus. We understand yesterday they had a press conference. Let me stop. Can somebody take responsibility of that place? Not from inside. Please, can you allow me 3 minutes? I'll go. I believe yesterday, following the Supreme Court judgment that nullified the purported election of Mr. Ehidioha in favor of the governorship candidate of the APC, distinguished Senator Hope Uzodinma, the PDP yesterday used language that even people who are partially mad in a democracy are not expected to use. We watch as PDP make very, very reckless statements that are designed not only to intimidate the judiciary, but one that is calculated to lay foundation for carefully planned unrest with a view to undermining the peace and stability of the Nigerian nation. But first, we have a duty to state the facts as we understand them. Even though we are not lawyers, reading through the judgment of the Supreme Court, and even based on the fact with which we approach the Supreme Court, I just need to recall what the facts are to show that PDP is not only reckless, they believe it is their birthright to continue to benefit from electoral fraud and electoral manipulation. Truth be told, by the time the Imo governorship election was conducted and Emeka Ehidioha was declared the winner, you do not have to be a law student of even 100 level. Every Nigerian knows that it is a constitutional requirement, not even an act of parliament. It is not in the Electoral Act. The Nigeria Constitution over the ages and the current one state clearly, and the courts are bound to interpret law according to the Constitution, whereas the courts can bend laws or nullify laws to the extent that they are inconsistent with the Constitution of Nigeria. No court of the land has power to bend, amend, or twist the extant provisions in the Nigeria Constitution of 1999 as amended. In that Constitution, it is clearly stated that to win the governorship seat of a state, a candidate must not only score the highest valid vote in that election, every candidate must necessarily have 2/3 of the local government areas. You must win 1/4 of the votes in at least 2/3 of the states for you to be qualified to be declared elected. in a governorship election in each of the 36 states of the Federation. In the case of Mr. Emeka Ihedioha, and I invite you to ask INEC to make available to you, because election results are not classified state matters. They are not security instruments. They are available, and citizens are entitled to ask and be given those results. Don't take the one from us, take the one from INEC. It shows clearly that even at the time Ihedioha was declared the governor, no attempt was made to disguise the fact that he did not score 1/4 of the vote cast in 2/3 of the local governments in Imo State. As far as we know, Imo has 27 local government areas, and Emeka Ihedioha scored 2/3 of the vote in only 12 local governments. 2/3 of 27 is 18. So you have a huge deficit of 6 local government areas, which Ihedioha or any other person must necessarily have to be able to be declared as the winner of a governorship election. This deficit, the INEC, the collating officer, a professor of mathematics, curiously did not know that 12 is not 2/3 of 27 local government areas. He proceeded recklessly to unlawfully declare Emeka Ihedioha as the governor of Edo State, of Imo State. In a society that is committed to truth, fairness, and rule of law, that returning officer ought not only to be dismissed, he ought to be helping himself with security agencies as to how he arrived at the decision to declare Emeka Ihedioha as winner. But we fully understand that it has been the philosophy of PDP, particularly from 2003, after the 1999 election, to arrogantly ask their agents or activists and manipulate INEC to ask them to declare results of election and arrogantly tell the winner who would have been declared the loser to go to court and challenge the result if he's not ready to accept the fraud perpetrated usually between INEC and PDP. That was exactly what they did in the case of Imo. And I think that was the height of irresponsibility on the part of INEC to condone what has been done. Now, we understand that the officer responsible for this is not necessarily a permanent staff of INEC. He's one of the university professors or vice chancellor that they had asked to preside as a returning officer in Imo State. I believe, in the light of the findings of the Supreme Court, there must be consequential actions. That now that it has been established that the professor went out of bound of reason and indulged in this reckless pronouncement that has led us to this situation that we are in, he cannot be enjoyed the comfort of his home while he accepts to create or lay foundation that all kinds of political vultures are trying to feast on. But let me also say that you need to follow truly the processes of the Supreme Court that they had followed before arriving at the decision that Senator Hope Uzodinma is the winner of the election. The first thought was that the Supreme Court nullified the election of Ihedioha on the ground that the result before them shows clearly that he did not win the 1/4 of the lawful vote cast in at least 2/3 of the local government in Imo State. That pronouncement of the Supreme Court already take out Emeka Ihedioha as a valid, already settled the issue of his governorship. the worst that could have happened if there were no other issues is that once the governor, Emeka, was out, the other possibility was whether or not a rerun was required or a repeat of the exercise. Number two, the key issue in the case of APC as a party and Hope Uzodinma as our candidate is that INEC and the collating officers bluntly refused to collate the votes in part of Hope Uzodinma's senatorial zone of Olu. Altogether, about 388 polling unit votes were not collated. Meanwhile, in each of these 388 units, INEC appointed unit presiding officers signed those results. The party agents in these 388 units signed those results. So the validity of the votes in these units were never in dispute. INEC did not have any cause and indeed did not cancel these unit results. All that happened is that the collating officers, for reasons best known to them, refused to collate the result from 388 units in the governorship election that were in favor of Senator Hope Uzodinma. My comrades, you do not have to be a practicing politician to know that there is usually, for the average politician, your own base is usually where you have the strongest support. Senator Hope is from the Olu senatorial zone, and it is the votes in these units that were not counted or collated for him, and they were never cancelled. So it was clear to us that even the first election petition tribunal, on the basis of this fact, would have no difficulties. First, in nullifying Emeka's purported declaration as a governor because he didn't have the spread. This is a constitutional provision for which the court has no jurisdiction, has no discretion. Number two, that there is no question that the votes in 388 units validly cast, signed by unit presiding officers, signed by party agents, were not collated by the collating officers. We had expected that the tribunal would naturally take this into account and Hope Uzodinma would have been declared. Because once you add the result from 388 units to the ones already accredited to Hope Uzodinma, he would have been the highest, he would have scored the highest number of votes ahead of all the other candidates. But by simply not counting these votes, that is why some people who are not informed keep insisting that the man INEC declared as last, as fourth, how could he come first? As I said, you are at liberty, because these are not classified documents. Because every political party has a right, and they do usually exercise that right, and in this case, that right was exercised to inspect the election materials. Neither the Emeka Ihodiaha's lawyer nor PDP lawyer questioned the validity of the votes that were casted in these 388 units. They did not fault it because they couldn't fault it because they were duly signed not only by APC agents, they were signed by the unit presiding officers as required by law, as well as agents of other political parties, including the PDP. However, because PDP has a reputation for manipulating systems, to our shock, the lower court, the lower tribunal, conveniently overlooked these 388 votes, 388 units, and proceeded to deal with only the other units. It made no comment. It did not nullify these units. Nobody had nullified those units. Nothing in the argument of PDP attempted to nullify those units. They just felt it was convenient to ignore the fact that these units were not collated. At the Court of Appeal, our lawyers again amplified that this is at the heart of our petition, namely that the votes casted in 388 units were not collated, and that Emeka Ihedioha did not have the spread required by law. Again, to our shock, the Court of Appeal judges that had that case, I'm not going to speculate, but there were all kinds of stories about what they had agreed at the first time and how they changed it at the second time, who put pressure on them. This will remain in the realm of speculation. But suffice to say that one of the panelists at the level of the Court of Appeal wrote a dissenting judgment. And in that dissenting judgment, it accommodated these votes in 388 units, and also found, as a matter of fact and in law, that Emeka Ihedioha did not have the spread and therefore could never have been declared as a governor. These are not state secrets. These are not security secrets. I invite you on your own as investigative reporters to ask for these documents. Or if you like, to summarize and read in detail, page by page, paragraph by paragraph, line by line, the findings of the Supreme Court and the judgment of the minority judgment at the Court of Appeal, and you will find the basis for the Supreme Court decision. Of course, some people, again, based on what I call electronic lawyers, we see them every day commenting freely and sometimes pronouncing with managerial finality their own judgment on cases that have not been argued before them. They have also found it convenient to argue that the total number of broadcasts was now in excess of the total accreditation. Of course, once you, as they say, once you lie once, you will need a series of lies to sustain the first lie. Truth be told, as they conveniently ignore these 388 units, they also, by the same reason, ignore the accredited voters in those units. In fact, between the returning officer of the governorship election in Imo State and INEC, and then the judges at the tribunal and the judges at the Court of Appeal level, the majority judges, they have more or less exercised these 388 units as if those parts are not in Imo State. Because unless they amend the Constitution and redraw the geography of Imo State as to exclude the people that voted in these units, I believe that those judges have more questions, more answers to some questions that Nigerians are entitled to ask, particularly now in the face of the judgment by the Supreme Court. So I believe, and I want to repeat it whether anybody believes it or not, what is important to me and to my party, where the chips are down, is where the truth lies. The interest of the Nigerian nation and the need to service our democracy is far more important that the interests of any political party, and certainly the interests of any individual governorship aspirants or candidate, whether it's of the APC, or it's of the PDP, or it's of ABGA, or indeed any other political party. Because I believe that if there is lesson to be learned from the fact that today APC is in power, is that just a few years back, we were not in power. I don't know how long we are going to be in power, but it is safe to say that we will not be in power forever. As we deepen democracy, clean up the book, and Nigeria imbibe the culture of free and fair election, only God can predict who will always win election. And therefore, my long-term interest as a Nigerian is better served by adhering to hard facts and ensuring that at our own level, we all play our part to ensure that elections are free and fair. And myself as a person, having been a victim of election rigging, nothing in my life will make me to go out of my way to aid and abet electoral manipulation. And so I believe that the bigger political substructure, without which we cannot erect a stable democratic culture in our country, require that we respect the rules of the game and we adhere to the provisions of the Nigeria Constitution. But I was baffled when yesterday, because PDP has lost a state they never won, that the Supreme Court has, in their supreme wisdom, re-established the fact that these 388 units are part and parcel of Imo State, and therefore they cannot, the vote they have casted, which were never cancelled, cannot be wished away. And they have accordingly added them, and then found that Hope Uzodinma is not only the highest vote scorer, he had the required spread necessary to be declared the winner of that election. And the Supreme Court has so upheld. And Hope has since resumed duties in Owerri, in Imo State, as the governor of that great state. We commend the courage of the Supreme Court. And we condemn in the strongest term possible the attempt by Secondus and his party, the PDP, to try to personalize a panel of eminent jurists, all 7 of them, in their unanimous judgment, we are clear that this is the position of the law and these are the facts. For PDP and Secondus to call for the resignation of the Chief Justice of Nigeria because they have lost a state that was never there, that they never won, is the height of recklessness. And I want to appeal to them that they should not behave like the proverbial English turkey that wanted the Christmas to come a little earlier. Because on Christmas Day, every English family will slaughter a turkey. When they make statements such as, this is a coup, this is a threat to our democracy, they behave as if they have another passport. For the rest of us who have only one passport, the green passport, this democracy has come to stay. We all must contribute our quota to strengthening it and obeying the rules of the game. It is now a fact of history that PDP tried to deepen the culture of do-or-die politics, as pronounced severally by a president elected on their platform. It is a fact that PDP is a beneficiary of electoral fraud year in, year out, and over time it became part of their sing-song that rig them out and let them go to court. Many Nigerians of my age has not forgotten how PDP retained the presidency of Nigeria in an election in which the ballot papers used did not even have serial numbers. And majority of the Supreme Court judges felt that, even as we all know that when you go to a petrol station and fill your tank and you ask for receipt, that receipt must necessarily carry serial number for basic accounting purposes. The Supreme Court at that time overwhelmed by PDP rigging machine and their determination to even convert angels to devils, persuaded our Supreme Court to accept that election. We brought Shehu Yaradua into office. And I'm happy that Yaradua admitted that even though he was a beneficiary of that fraud, but that is a fraud that must be corrected. PDP as a party can never, whether on ground of morality or on account of their known history, pronounce in the manner that they do, as if they are not the one that lay foundations for all the challenges we are continuously facing in our democracy. The current Electoral Act was not crafted by APC government. The current Electoral Act as it is was crafted by PDP government because they had the instrument of rigging, and they made it such a law that it is almost impossible for anyone who has been rigged out to seek redress from law court, which is why our president has committed himself to doing everything he will do to ensure that, on the basis of the lessons learned, that he will clean up the system and leave Nigeria with a legacy of, at least at the level of legal framework, that we should have better elections in the future. I'm sure you also know that we are the only party that, courtesy of the Supreme Court, we were not allowed to participate in any of the elections in Rivers State, except the presidential election, on the ground that INEC claimed that our party primaries had challenges and the court nullified them. And so PDP had Rivers without any form of opposition. I did a press conference and I said we accepted this judgment of the Supreme Court as law-abiding citizens, in spite of the pains in our heart, that we would take steps to do what the Supreme Court has to do, namely to reconduct the congresses that were done under the supervision of my predecessor, Chief John Odige Oyego. I publicly admitted that we will obey the Supreme Court, even with the pain in our hearts. In Zamfara State, the elections had been held. We won the governorship, we won the Senate, we won the House of Rep, we won all the members of the House of Assembly. Again, the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, said our primaries were not perfect, and therefore they nullify the governorship, the Senate, the Rep, and the House of Assembly. And so today, PDP had Zamfara for nothing, with no effort at all. Again, because we have to be law-abiding, notwithstanding our own reservation, we could not go to any television station to castigate the Chief Justice of the Federation or the Supreme Court for this judgment, because we could have rightly argued, at least on the basis of facts and basic morality, that if you find that we didn't have candidate, should that be the reason for declaring a loser a man people didn't vote for as the one who has won? A party that didn't win, that people did not vote for, that the party now appropriate the votes of our own party. But in life, you don't always win. You win some, you lose some. And a mature Democrat is the one that is capable and is willing to celebrate when the rules are in his favor or when the outcome is in his favor, but must also have the courage to live with the pain of defeat. And the good news is, as they say, the downfall of a man is not the end of his life. Which was why, with all the pain in our heart, we accepted Zamfara, we accepted Rivers. No, not the one. At other level, you also know that we lost 2 senators to PDP in Sokoto State. We believe we won those Senate seats in Sokoto State. But the Court of Appeal ruled against our senators and awarded them to PDP. With the pain in our heart, we could not do a press conference to castigate the Court of Appeal or castigate the judges that sat on that panel. Because we have to restrain ourselves as part of our own contribution to sustaining democracy that is founded on rule of law, of which the judiciary plays a critical role when it comes to interpreting those laws. In Ekiti State, a senator that won his election at the tribunal, at the level of the Court of Appeal, the appeal court removed him and gave it to a lady senator, Olujimi. Again, you will see us calling a press conference to denounce those judges or calling for their removal or their resignation. Because if we only celebrate when we win, denounce, abuse, and demand removal when we lose, there will be no judiciary in Nigeria. And I think it is PDP leaders are being short-sighted when they frontally attack the judiciary each time they lose election. And when they win, however unfairly in the eyes of ordinary people, is democracy at work? The rule of law has prevailed. Review the comments credited to PDP in all those states where they were declared winners. You will find them celebrating the judiciary to high heavens. But review their comments where APC has won. You will never see any one of them in which they admitted that the rule of law has prevailed. This is a very, very dangerous attitude. So this afternoon, I stand before you that in spite of our reservations about some of the judgments that didn't favor us, we recognize that we have the responsibility to market candidates and to try to win election. The Supreme Court has the responsibility to make final pronouncement if the parties involved in the election decide to go to court. And the Supreme Court is the bus stop. So we repose confidence in the Supreme Court, not just among the judges that sat on this panel, but on all the judges that are in the Supreme Court, even at the Court of Appeal, even the judges that had split judgment at the Court of Appeal, we have respect for them, even as we did not agree with their findings. This is what we are obliged to do in a democracy based on the principle of separation of powers. And so, I also want to say that it is not for nothing that PDP is asking, and perhaps not for the first time, that they try to dictate who should hear their cases. You recall that at the presidential tribunal, PDP demanded that the president of the court of appeal, her husband being a member of APC, that she should rescue herself from sitting. Just like that. Even though there are several judges whose spouses are PDP. The one that had the case in Benue, and I believe in Imo, and several other places, we have evidence of their relationship, but we never made an issue out of it. Because we do not think that for a society that believes in gender equality, that understand that the stability of a nation stands from the stability of a family, that we should, by actions or pronouncements, suggest that we should make laws such that spouses of people who are judges should not be in politics. Or, if you are already a politician, you should not marry a judge, because the consequences will be far-reaching. We will continue to resist the temptation to join PDP in this reckless campaign, making unfounded allegations and sometimes laughable assumptions about outcome of matters before the court. So we ask Nigerians and the Supreme Court to remain resolute that our obedience to the court of law cannot be selective. They have specifically demanded that the court should not hear the remaining cases. They have their reasons for that. Because look at the fact of the case in Sokoto and look at INEC double standard in those cases, where the units cancelled, the number of registered voters, and the PVC collected in those areas are more than the difference between our candidate and the one that they declared the winner. PDP already can foresee what certain possible outcome. And so they are trying to ambush the judiciary and blackmail them either to create a stalemate or blackmail the judges to try to oblige them victories that they do not deserve. This is dangerous for our democracy. And we ask the judges to refuse to be blackmailed, to stand firm, and do justice without fear or favor, knowing that at the end of the day, it's not only in Nigeria. Everywhere in the world, nobody goes to celebrate electoral defeat. Nigeria will not be an exception. But the difference between us and others is that PDP is ready to pull down the democratic edifice once it doesn't deliver to them. When I watch their former presidential candidate, former vice president, Atiku Abubakar, talking about Nigeria democracy in danger, making a substantiated allegation about its affair with the judiciary, I said Atiku is the least competent person to so speak. Atiku Abubakar is on record as having manipulated INEC and judiciary to remove Hashidu, who was elected in Bauchi on AMPP platform because, yes, Gombe. Because at the end of the result, his boss, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, said Atiku has lost his base. He lost the senatorial seat, and now he lost his own governorship in his own state, and he lost so much in Northeast. Atiku, in response, as you will remember, manipulated all institutions such that Professor Jibril Aminu, who is already on record, and I speak with authority on this because we have the newspapers, he had already congratulated the man who defeated him as a senator. And there are stories as to between 100 and 110 million was expended for those who lost, who have been given certificate by INEC to voluntarily return the certificate, not through the court of law, by saying we have been well paid. We accept that we are losers. That is how Aminu returned to the Senate. Senator Zigwina is still alive. He had already considered defeat. By the same logic, Senator Zigwina returned to the Senate. And the man who was defeated, who won the election, also considered, and so on and so forth. But bad examples cannot be the basis for making progress. We are not about to copy him. But it's important that we remind Nigerians that talking about electoral fraud, talking about manipulating the institutions of democracy, that Atiku cannot be the advocate. He contributed his own bit to undermining we need to remind people of their roles in history so that when they talk, they shouldn't talk as if Nigerians don't have memory. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is in print and electronic media where he said publicly that he regretted that the instructions his boss, his then boss, President Obasanjo, gave him, namely to ensure that Lagos was reclaimed to PDP by all means. He regretted that he did not carry out that ruthless rigging that would have made Lagos to become part of PDP. He regretted because he has now fell out of favor with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He said these things publicly. And I think the media, whenever you report us, report what we have said before, so that the readers can make up their mind about the value to place of the statement that we make. I hope that you will not also forget to continue to remind Nigerians that elaborate interview, thanks to Channels Television, that Senator Matu, then Deputy Senate President, narrated in an interview with Channels Television how between himself, Obasanjo, Atiku, how they used to rig elections. He taught Nigerians how to rig elections, how he was used and others to rig elections, to keep PDP in power. For God's sake, in moments like this, and in order to teach all of us lessons, you should play back these tapes so that Nigerians know who they should listen to when they talk and who they should not to. And if they must listen because they have no choice, when you put on your radio or your television or you pick a newspaper, you have no choice about what you read or hear, but you have the choice as to who to believe and the weight to place on statements made by anyone. I want to thank you very much for coming to this press conference. And I do appreciate that we call it at a very short notice. And I want to assure you, for us, Nigeria is much more than the sum total of all the political parties. So our first commitment is to the Nigerian nation before any other consideration. Thank you very much.